again.
An inmate at the Salinas Valley State Prison, Soledad, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hello, Rudy.
Hello, Mr. Lazor.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and roll on recording this, putting it out there, that's fine with me. I had a chance to think over the last 10 or 20 minutes or so about some things I might want to put out there for starters with people, and so I'd like to do that. And then if you have questions, along the way that help fill in some of the gaps, by all means do that. If you have questions or something you want to ask about more of the personal side of life in here, I probably won't go there on my own, but go ahead and do that, and I can fill in those gaps too. Again, I'm really mindful about the expense to you, but I guess I'm almost never out here in the day room during the day like this. The day room is an area outside of our cells, and I guess there's pretty good access to phone time where there's not a lot of crowds. The rest of the day, it's lined up and waiting and trying to get on lists and stuff like that. It's pretty difficult, but this period of time, I guess there's quite a bit of access available. So, with that in mind, what I wanted to do was talk about basically two different things that I'd really like the public to know about my case. One is the corruption that was used to frame me and railroad me into prison in the first place. Let me ask you this. Can I use names or should I not use names? I don't want you getting sued or, that sort of stuff. I would love for them to sue me because they counter-sue and I'd win.
No, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it at all. The only time that names ever come into play is when a minor has been sexually molested, and we sometimes want to edit out the name of the minor. But other than that, you have a right for free speech and freedom of expression as far as I'm concerned, and we want you to express yourself, and if you want to use names, you feel free to do so.
Okay, the deputy district attorney who handled the prosecution of my case, his name was Mark Haynes. He was real good buddies with the defense attorney I unfortunately hired. I was totally green about this. I knew nothing about the judicial system. I trusted it. I was so foolish in doing so. The attorney I hired, Wesley James Schroeder, was later found out by us to have been, selling cases right and left to the DA with deals and favors and this kind of thing. So he sold me down the river. The defense attorney actually prosecuted me harder than the DA did. And they both committed all kinds of acts of corruption, planted evidence, changed evidence, manufactured evidence to send me to prison. We don't know all the reasons why on that. They have probably more to do with the person I shot than with me. But there were a whole nest of corrupt police, about 6 or 8 of them, because police have a real strong camaraderie with each other. But when that camaraderie is used in a negative way for corruption, it's very bad, and that's what happened in my case. The Judge James A. Wright, is no longer alive. He died many years ago, but he was also corrupt because he knew a lot of what was going on. So basically what I have what's called Brady error. That's where anything from the lightest of the state, i.e. the district attorney withholding evidence or secreting evidence, to the more strong aspects of it, actually planting evidence, destroying favorable evidence. All of those things in my case I'll call it Brady error. That's what the court case is that is named after, Brady versus Maryland, way back in the 60s or 70s. I have probably the worst case in U.S. history. I've researched literally tens of thousands of cases over the years for decades. That's all I did almost, was sleep and do legal work for 15, 16, 18 hours a day. So I've researched probably all the cases out there on this up until the last few years anyway, and I've never seen another case as bad. We have proven, which is on my website, www.free-laser.org. You can go there and look up the 3552. I've proven by their own records that they planted, destroyed, manufactured, switched, changed, altered evidence in 20-some different separate acts, which are all, each of them a crime, a serious crime, to frame me for this murder, to get the murder conviction. And my attorney helped them all the way along the way. For example, I had evidence that they were planting and destroying favorable evidence and hiding favorable evidence. And when I took that evidence to my attorney, instead of bringing it out and exposing it to the jury or to the judge or to anybody, he literally buried it in his desk drawer and used himself as a barrier between me and that evidence to keep me from getting it and getting it to surface in front of the jury. So we have a lot of instances of that. I can prove everything I'm saying. I have the absolute proof of it, and most of that proof is there on the website.
Mr. Lazor, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought there. I am on your website now, and it's free-lazor.org, exactly what you said, and there is a section called Proof of Innocence. And on that page, there are many documents. I mean, I probably could count 20 to 30, maybe 40 documents, all individual documents. So when you refer to your Proof of Innocence 3352, are you referring to the collection of all of these 30 to 40 documents as a whole? I just want to make sure I have the right documents that I should be promoting.
Well, thank you for that interjection. That's important. Please feel free to do that at any time. Actually, there's one document called the 3552, and what that means is I had 35 different pieces of evidence that they destroyed, planted, etc., and then 52 exhibits backing it up. The total, some of those exhibits are as much as 15 pages or so. The total of that whole document is like about 430 pages. It's quite extensive. It took that much to prove everything I wanted to prove. So you might be looking at that thinking it's a bunch of different documents. It might be one, or there might be a bunch of different documents. I don't have access to the website, and so I'm several years removed from...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
In some cases, over 10 years removed from when that stuff was posted, so I don't remember or don't know exactly what all is on there.
And when I'm looking at the page, it does appear that the person who is working on your behalf has displayed it in multiple documents rather than one big document. So there's a pro and a con to that. It gives it in piecemeal for the people trying to digest it, but for people that want to transmit it, it's going to be very awkward to download 40 different documents. So I might try to reach out to Ken Masat and your friend Don and try to find out how to find a single document that we can easily transmit to other people.
Let me even streamline that a little more. Reach Sam Milam. Sam, last name M-I-L-A-M, Sam Milam III. He is the guy that runs my website.
Okay.
He's one of the few people I know, by the way, who's an actual genius. He dropped out of the system years ago, but he's there running my website. He's an elderly man at this point, and if you can reach him, I'm sure his information is up there. He has a bunch of different websites of his own. Reach Sam and ask him how to get to the 3552, and he'll direct you exactly as to which one it is and how to get there, and then you can relay that to our audience that'll be listening to this.
Very good. Will Ken Masat have his contact information, his email address, or his phone number?
I'm sure he does. You have a way to reach Gail Travis, right?
Yes, I do. She's a dear sweetheart. I could tell when I was talking to her, she very much loves you, and she spoke on your behalf quite eloquently, and she was really, really good when she advocated your story, and very, very dear, sweet soul.
She's like an angel. Gail has Sam's information, so if Ken doesn't have it, go to Gail, or go to Gail first. Either way. Both of them should have it, though. Okay, and one other thing to quickly inject, since I know our time is limited to 15-minute phone calls. We had previously talked in the previous call that will not go out about people writing letters on your behalf, and I think that's important for you to mention that again, because that's what we're encouraging people to do short term that can possibly affect your freedom, and I want to make sure you touch on that. So, very good.
Yep.
Okay, great. First of all, I want to make it clear, nobody should write the judge. That could really mess up things in this case. Anybody writing should write to my attorney. You have that information out there, Eric Weaver, right?
Yes, sir.
And what we're specifically wanting, because this is a very specific issue, is the California Supreme Court ruled this month that what it would take for the judge to order my release is only if my 35 years in prison, considering the circumstances that sent me here, only if that shocks the conscience, quote unquote. Those three words, shocks the conscience. So anybody listening, even if they're strangers that feel like this is shocking, that a man has spent 35 years in here who has no crime history whatsoever, who has an upstanding history and society of a lot of good things and no negatives. And the situation is such that two judges have now ruled, 2007 and last year, have ruled that this was a self-defense case, even though the jury didn't rule it as such. But there were a lot of reasons for that, because they weren't instructed properly and they were fooled and misled by false evidence and such. But in any case, anybody hearing my voice who feels that this is shocking, bewildering, unbelievable, unreal, that I've spent 35 years in here with a perfect background in history, while a bunch of other people who were convicted of the higher, worse first-degree murder that the jury acquitted me of, by the way, that they've already gone home doing 10 and even 15 years less than me. So I'm definitely singled out and targeted as a political prisoner. If they feel that shocks the conscience, please write. And I guess you've got the information of where they can write to, Rudy. You
bet. We have produced that. It's an email address to your attorney, as well as a copy to Ken Masat needs to go out as well. And we have those email addresses for anybody who needs them, and we have published those on the website.
Thank you so much. And this has to be done immediately, because our deadline to have our last pleading that will be allowed is May 2nd. So we're only days away from that. And that means not to wait till that last date, because Eric, the attorney, has to incorporate it into our pleading. So act now, please, or as soon as you possibly can.
Amen.
Okay, the second thing is, now actually the third thing that I wanted to bring up is, we're going to run out of time here pretty quick, is the parole situation. And I want to be known. I'm not ever going to think, okay, this is probably going to work, so I'm going to drop all these other fronts. No, I'm going to go on 3 fronts, 10 fronts, 15 fronts of fighting each one as if it's the only one, because it may be the only one that eventually produces a result of freeing me. So the parole board front, I've had 7 or 8 parole hearings starting way back in 1994. It's supposed to be 1992. And every one of them has been the same thing, utter corruption of the parole board. They're literally committing kidnapping, because the law, the statute under which I'm sentenced, they'll deny this, but it's right there for anybody to read. You've got to go back to the law before they amended it many times in 1983, which was in effect, and it is my law for my conviction in 1983, says that at my minimum eligible parole date, which was May 1, 1992, I shall be released unless I'm so much a danger to the community based on 2 things. One, a crime history that's extensive, of which I have absolutely none. So that doesn't apply. And the other thing is, if my particular second-degree murder was so especially heinous compared to average second-degree murder. And, of course, it's just the opposite. So both of those criteria that makes an exception to keep me in here longer than May 1, 1992, both of them are thrown out the window. They don't apply. And so it's straight kidnapping for the parole board to have kept me in prison longer. And they always do the same reason right before my parole hearings. Very criminal CDC guards. And when I say this, I want to say there are some very good CDC guards. I don't want to paint every one of them as a bad person, just like cops. There are some good, like Jack McLam, and some bad, as we've seen in the news lately. But as far as the bad cops, there are always a few or many really bad apples, depending on the given prison. A lot of this has been cleaned up lately. It's gotten better over the last few years, I'm happy to say. But there are very corrupt guards, and what they do is they write false rule violation reports on me. Little petty stuff, like being on the phone out of turn or being on the yard when I'm not supposed to. And all of these are, most of them I have absolutely proved are completely false. And the ones, some I can't prove are false, but they were all false. And those are the reasons they've said I've had to spend an extra 25 years in prison because of those. So my murder sentence was fully served at 8.5 years, 17 years cut in half. Because of half-time credits that I earned, work credits, and good time credits, and that sort of thing. And so on top of that, I've done an extra 25 years now, a little more than 25 extra, for petty things like being out of bounds, or stepping over a yellow line, or being on the phone out of turn. It's just...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
It's just outrageous crazy. So let me...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Close for now with that, because we've got about 45 to 50 seconds left, and you may have something more you want to say, Rudy. Go ahead.
No, I just want to tell you that our thoughts and our prayers and our love are with you. When you describe withholding exculpatory evidence, Brady violations, Giglio violations, misconduct by the prosecution and the
30 seconds remaining.
The 9/11 law enforcement cults covering up for one another because the camaraderie can be very bad when it's used in corruption. My audience completely understands that. You're not telling them anything new, and we do pray that God works a mighty miracle and that we see your freedom very soon, and we want to give glory to God when that happens, Mr. Lazor.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. And next time, the corruption of the coroner.
Very good. We'll look forward to hearing that, Mr. Lazor. All right. God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right.